This is my save file for Persona 5 Royal on the Switch. The game was released on Nintendo in late October of 2022. The save file is dated December 22nd, 2022. That's a lot of hours to put into a game in that short amount of time. But what's even weirder is, I didn't finish the game. So today, I want to talk about Persona 5 Royal, why I put 90 hours into the game, and then just stopped playing it. We'll be getting into some plot points for Persona 5 in this video, so don't watch it if you wish to avoid spoilers. My first Persona game was Persona 3 on the PlayStation 2. No, I'm not one of the OGs who started out on early SMT games, or one of the cool kids who played the first Persona game. I'm one of those people who started when Atlus rebooted the series with the life sim elements. I played through Persona 3, then played through it again when Fez was released, then again when Persona 3 Portable was released. I have the Aegis Nendoroid. The slow version of Memories of You never fails to give me chills because I know the context. I know what it means. I enjoyed Persona 4 as well, first playing through it on PS2 and then again in the golden version on Vita, but it was harder to get into at first because, well, it wasn't Persona 3. There was a sort of inertia holding me in place. The bonds and the friendships and the relationships that I had built with the characters in Persona 3 were so strong and real to me that it felt just weird to start a new Persona game and not encounter Yukari or Stupe or Aegis. Eventually I did buckle down and accept Persona 4 on its own merits, and I found an incredible game. Of course, going into Persona 5, many of the same issues I had with starting Persona 4 would carry over, and with a vengeance. By the time 5 had come out, I had played Persona 3 in one form or another 3 times, and Persona 4 twice. I had, it is safe to say, summoned a very large number of personas. I had forged a very large number of social links. And now here Atlus was, asking me to start over at level 1 and no social links all over again. Beyond that, 2016, the year that the first iteration of Persona 5 was released, was a busy time in my life. So what happened is, I bought Persona 5 on sale sometime in 2017. I made it as far as the midpoint of Kamoshida's palace, it's about 5 or 6 hours in, I think, and I got sidetracked by life. Fast forward to October 2022, the month that 2 amazing games were finally ported to the Switch. I successfully avoided buying Nier Automata through a pretty simple trick. I already had Nier on the PS4, so I played a few hours of it and realized that I didn't really need a portable version of it, and that saved me $40. So I thought I'd try the same trick for Persona 5. A few hours after booting up my Persona 5 save file on the PS4, I realized something. I needed this game in its most complete version on a handheld system. Not wanted, needed. Which led to me buying this. It was admittedly a bit of a slog to get through the first few hours, since I had literally just played them on the PS4 version, but soon after that I was hooked. So now that we've set the scene, it's time to talk about perhaps the most amazing thing about my journey with Persona 5 is this. From the game's release in 2016 to October 2022, I effortlessly avoided all spoilers. Having played the PS4 version for the first few hours, I knew about the cognitive world and palaces. I knew, more importantly, about the narrative device that the game uses for a large chunk of its playtime. Namely, that the protagonist of the story was in the middle of a heist alongside his fellow phantom thieves, that he was caught, and that he is now recounting the tale of how he got here to the prosecutor, Sai Najima. So, in other words, the story is told retrospectively. But, and seriously, this is your last chance to exit out of this video and avoid spoiling one of the coolest plots I've ever seen in a video game. I knew nothing about Najima's palace, or how the protagonist getting caught was part of the plan all along, or how Akechi was evil. So, other than the opening hours that replicated what I had played on the PS4 version of Persona 5, the story was entirely new to me. I didn't even know any of the characters other than Morgana, Ryuji, and Anne. The story was fresh, but even more than that, that narrative device exerted a strong pull on me. I didn't know how the story would play out, how the hero would make good his escape. The draw to get to that point in the story, to learn what would happen between the protagonist and Sai Najima, got me to the pivotal point in the tale. Persona 5 is a game that lives and breathes its aesthetics. This is a game about being a stylish, flashy criminal. But that's really just the surface level. The idea of the different personas, of the various masks that we all adopt in order to make it through life, it plays out in different ways in the game's mechanics. You see, each social link that you forge with another character requires you to act and react in subtly different ways. If you respond to Anne with the same tone that you use with Ryuji, you won't progress through the social link. You must adopt a different guise, a different mentality, a different persona to reflect her expectations. So what Persona 5 is, really, is a game about pretending to be a stylish, flashy criminal while actually being a semi-awkward teenage boy. You pretend to be an ace gamer when you progress through the Tower Confidant. You pretend to be a Yakuza goon during the Hangman Confidant, and so on. That's a lot of words to get to the point that, for at least the first 90 hours, Persona 5 allows you the option to explore it. You get to explore who you're going to be through the various social links. You get to explore the various aspects of personas through battles and fusion. And you get to explore the story through a fairly steady stream of plot beats, all of which are presented in a very cool Rat Pack / Italian Job / Ocean's 11 vibe. And the entire time you get to jam to some incredible music. It's like this. If I'm in the mood to play a visual novel / dating sim, I could spend the day in Persona 5 strengthening my various social links, or romancing Best Girl. If I'm in the mood to grind out some levels, I can go to a palace or explore mementos. If I'm strong enough and I'm ready to advance the story, I pretty much can do just that. I can goof off or I can be serious. I can increase my stats or I can play mini-games. Persona 5 for the first 90 hours says, how do you want to play this game today? Okay, I can expedite that. And the content comes just slow enough to feel rewarding and just fast enough to keep you hooked. Growing your knowledge, your guts, your charm, etc., all those stats happens just often enough to feel good. Fighting battles is tense and exciting. But the game also gives you the option, if you're strong enough and your bond with Ryuji is high enough, to just run into enemies for an auto kill and you net a portion of the money in the experience. With the exception of the Okamura boss battle, the content for the first 90 or so hours is presented as a smooth open highway. That's not to say that it's easy, just that the rewards and the levels come often enough to make it feel worth it. The next bite of a side character's story is just around the corner. The next level up is just a few fights away. The lowest floor of mementos is just there. Notably, too, the content of Persona 5 is, at this point in the game, pretty much divided evenly between narrative, life sim, and RPG. No element of that trio really overpowers the other, which also means that the various beats of the game, the plot beats, the social link beats, the level up beats, they all run together in a smooth, syncopated rhythm that works every bit as well as one of Shoji Meguro's compositions. All this worked together to draw me along through the story. The Okumura fight was a struggle, and Nojima's palace had some annoying sections, but the payoff was seeing how the Phantom Thieves pulled off a caper that felt like it came straight out of the climax of an incredible heist film. The high of that narrative euphoria even carried me through the tough Shido fight. And then came... I've been using the phrase first 90 hours throughout this video, but it would be more accurate to differentiate between the first 2 in-game semesters, which I completed, and the 3rd semester, which I did not. We could differentiate it as the royal content versus the non-royal content, though that's not entirely accurate, as a lot of the royal content is found in the first 2 semesters. The problem really is that 3rd semester and Maruki's palace. At this point, Persona 5 Royal asks, how do you want to play this game today? Okay, here's 60 battles against HP sponges with weird strength and weakness distributions. I mean, you can see some of the gameplay footage I've recorded playing in the background here. I found myself spending hours just fighting battle after battle, fusing persona after persona after persona, only to dive back into the battles to get more XP and more personas, trying to do something to mitigate how long these fights were taking. This didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. What happens at this point of the game, what caused me to ultimately stop playing it, is the fact that the incremental rewards for all the various aspects of the game, they all dramatically slowed. My brain likes seeing bars fill up. Ooh, bar get full, number go higher, ooh. But I maxed out my kindness stat in November, I got to rank 10 with Futaba and any other social link I was interested in. The main storyline didn't have much juice left in it beyond go get Maruki. And so basically, to get any sense of progress, I was reduced to playing shogi with the digital version of Andrea Botes, if Andrea Botes had a tragic backstory and a distinct lack of personality. That's the magic phrase, sense of progress. Remember that balance I talked about earlier between narrative, life sim, and RPG? Well, in Persona 5 Royal's 3rd semester, both the narrative and the life sim elements are sacrificed, and the game becomes almost purely focused on the RPG, on the battles and the grind. But even the battles stop being fun when each one takes so long. The sense of progress vanished. Earlier in the game, when an aspect of the game became difficult or annoying, that sense of progress remained because there were other ways for me to progress, other things for me to work on, until I felt ready to tackle that challenging portion or that annoying dungeon. Not so in Semester 3. And so, that's why I stopped. So what does this mean for what I play in the future? Maybe I just don't like long games, or RPGs. The evidence suggests that neither of those is true. I played 150 hours of Monster Hunter Rise in a shorter time period than I played my 100 hours of Persona 5, and I'm still playing Monster Hunter. Likewise, in the past year, I've played several RPGs, Pokemon Shining Pearl, Witcher 3, Bravely Default 2, Fire Emblem Three Houses, to name just a few. So it's not long games or RPGs that are the problem. What I suspect is that Persona 5, as it was originally released, was a complete game in its own right, with a cohesive, internally consistent narrative and a sense of self. I'm not disparaging the work that the Royal team did in adding the Royal content in any way, but as far as I can tell, no one ever said of vanilla Persona 5, hey, this ending doesn't feel like a true ending. It does. It is. And so, Maruki's Palace has, for me, the sense of optional DLC. And because it feels optional, it's that much easier to drop. If you finished Fallout 4 but you didn't play all the DLC, you still finished the game, right? That, to an extent, is how I feel about Persona 5. I finished it. I just didn't play through the Maruki's Palace DLC pack. So what does this mean for future games that I play? Well, certainly I will be more cautious before buying longer games, but I was already being cautious about that. My backlog already has dozens that sit above 40 hours for base game completion. I will certainly try to ensure that the core gameplay loop of any future game that I pay full price for is enjoyable to me, because frankly I no longer have the patience to power through that stuff if I don't like it. But ultimately I don't feel like Persona 5 Royal for Switch was a bad purchase, really, when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, I paid $60 to experience a great story and nearly 100 hours of gameplay. That's an excellent dollars to hours ratio, and while that's certainly not the only indicator of a game's quality, I doubt that I would put 100 hours into a game that wasn't, good. Will I ever pick it back up and finish it? Probably not. Was the journey that I had with it worth the price of entry? Absolutely. I think the lesson here, for me, is to let go of this notion that I have to wring every last bit of enjoyment, to see every last bit of content out of everything that I love. If I'm 50 or 100 or even 3 hours into something and it stops being fun, well, I'm not really starved for options on how to spend my free time. Being a completionist can be a curse, and if you're able to break yourself of that curse, you can find a lot more fun in video games. I'm X0. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, call me names in the comments section. Either way, you'll probably feel better afterwards. And I'll see you next time.